So humility, what does it mean to be humble? And humility for me, it's been an interesting process thinking about humility in the last 10 years, because I used to think humility was one of the worst things that could ever happen to you.
I'm so humble. Oh, the meek. Blessed are the meek. Oh, that's nice because they have a hell of a time.
That's right. I would confuse humility with humiliated. To me, the only way to be humble was to be humiliated. And
not bad.
that they were
close. It's close.
Yeah. Because I loved being right. I love being right. Just ask Arthur. It's my favorite.
He still likes being right.
I don't think I put the past tense on it. I think I said I love being right.
Okay. I just heard the past tense.
And so to me, when you're right, that means you're smart, because I've prided myself on being smart. I've prided myself on knowing things that other people don't know. I can remember tormenting my younger brothers and sisters coming home from school with a piece of knowledge that I'd gained because I was ahead of them in school, and they didn't know. So I would torment them with my knowledge. One of my things that I can remember the most is going, "Your epidermis is showing," and they was, I got to the point of tears, running to my mother saying, "She says my epidermis is showing." That was, to me, that was the pleasure I took in life, was my knowledge, my superior knowledge. So that's why, for me, thinking humility of admitting that I don't know something, why I associated that with being humiliated, because for me, when I found myself not knowing something, I always felt humiliated.
It's the social knife fight. The girls in your elementary school that were the alpha females who just tyrannized and made the other girls' life living hell. That's what I suppose the democratic system, in a way, or any tribal custom, there's the alpha, there's the dominant, there's the handful that dominate the many. And they do that because they're right. There's that great quote from by Arthur C. Clarke when he said, "Who can forget Jacob Bronowski in his superb series, The Ascent of Man, standing amid his relatives, the ashes of his relatives at Auschwitz, and saying, 'This is how men behave when they believe they have absolute knowledge.'" Humility to me is obviously being in touch with your limitations. Period. I mean, what else is it?
I don't have any limitations.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
I'm a god. I'm going to be worshipped as a god. That's what this show is about. We need you people to start sending money in.
That's what we're really disappointed about, is people aren't worshiping us.
They're not worshiping us and sending cash, envelopes of cash. Don't bother putting your name on, because it doesn't matter who you are. Just send the money. Keep us on the air. Help us to get this message across. Does that sound familiar?
That's right. Okay, so being humble means you are willing to admit to your limitations. So that seems like a good start. And I was thinking, so why do we want...
I wonder why humility is so rare. True humility.
Yeah, because when I was talking about what I did as a child, feeling superior in my knowledge, and that's... I think as a child, you see your ignorance as an obstacle to being an adult. The way you perceive adults is they know everything, and it's through their knowledge of everything that they have control over their lives.
Perfect word.
So we feel like when
over your life,
right,
too, yeah, not theirs.
So it's through knowledge that we have control. And so that's another thing, that by being humble, you feel like you're losing control, that you're admitting to a lack of control, and that's also terrifying. But so we think that having knowledge and having knowledge of everything is something to really strive for, and we're afraid of the position when we're afraid to admit that we don't know.
Because again, a quote from. G. Gordon Spencer, I think. G. Gordon Brown. I keep thinking of that British Prime Minister this week. who said that in our system of education, we're taught to be proud of what we know and ashamed of what we don't know. And this is doubly corrupt. It absolutely blocks further knowledge, and it creates a society of phonies. Because as we've said many times on this show, from our work, we posit that the only thing any of us, know, let's just start. K-N-O-W is a huge word. It's an absolute statement. If you say you know something, that means you know it. What do we see on Nova, on PBS last night? That there's a little over 1 million, maybe 1.8 million.
1.8 million known species on Earth. And they estimate there's at least 10 million, and that's just an estimate. It could be 100 million. They have no clue, but that it just shows how limited our knowledge of the species on Earth. And the question was, how can we, think about saving the planet and not saving the planet? That's
Planet's going to take care of
hubris.
itself. Somebody's in trouble, but it's not the planet.
How can we say we understand the ecosystem and how to keep it in balance and how to live here sustainably if we don't even know a fraction? We're at 10% or less.
Scientists said it'd be akin to a doctor trying to treat the body and only knowing 10% of the organs.
Right.
The point I was laboring toward, though, was what we say and have said repeatedly. Is because know is an absolute. If you know something, you know it absolutely. And we suggest the only thing we know absolutely is, something's happening at this location. If you're out there, you really think about it, you don't even know who you are. Not really know who you are. You can tell your history and all that stuff and your biology, how mommy and daddy, who loved each other very much, and, well, never mind. Let's keep it clean. And, here you are, and here's your history. And you don't know what that is. You don't know what all this stuff going on around you is. Not really know. So humility is kind of getting in touch with that. But in a society where we're taught that you're embarrassed and you have to put on a dunce cap and go sit in the corner of the classroom because you don't know the answer to the question the teacher asked you, you're punished and ridiculed and humiliated, and you have to be ashamed of your ignorance. The truth is we're all ignorant, and not only is it not anything to be ashamed of, it's something to be embraced. That's what humility is. That's what I think the real essence of Christianity actually is when it's really experientially happening, is an experience of surrender to, I don't know. I've kidded myself all my life that I'm running my life, that I know what I'm doing, that I know where I'm going, and all of a sudden one day you realize, I don't know my elbow from my other part. And you really get that, and you experience a flood of release and an incredible sense of lightness and enlightenment from the heaviness of pretense, of going through life pretending like you're a sophisticated know-it-all and you have an answer to everything and no one can defeat you and no one can make you look foolish because you know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? I've done that. I just do that with long hair, man. I've been around. I'm hip. Done the right drugs, read the right books, drink the right beer.
Yeah, but so we all get into kind of a rut thinking that we know who we are and this is what life is.
For help.
And, we're whatever niche we want to be in. Some people want to be the soccer mom, not knowledge. And so without the questioning. So, I just wanted to say this because I was thinking about how in college when I was at Northwestern, I was terrified of asking questions. I never raised my hand and asked questions in class.
It's really
because
incredibly smart.
Because
Mensa candidate.
Yeah, but I was afraid to show that I didn't know something because I was afraid that this was whatever the question was in my mind. I was afraid that this was something that was really obvious to everybody else, and if I asked the question, I would reveal my ignorance, and I would look like a fool. And for me, that has controlled my life so much. The fear of looking foolish.
Anybody relate to that out there? I can relate.
So I wouldn't ask the question. And then a lot of times, like half an hour later or next class, somebody would ask the same question I asked. And I think, oh, it wasn't a stupid question after all. And sometimes the professor would even say, that's a really good question. Like, wow, that could have been me. But I was so afraid of looking foolish. And then after I graduated, a couple years later, I took some classes at a state university. And just as a little bit of maturity, I was less afraid to ask questions. And it was amazing, the difference. Even though it was not nearly as good a university, my willingness to admit ignorance, it meant I engaged with the professor. And there was a much better learning experience. It was amazing how much different it was. And it was all to do with my willingness to say, I don't know.